All right, everybody, welcome back once again to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. I'm your host, Stephen Maggs, joined once again by Ali. Ali, how you doing, mate? You can notice I'm a bit chirpier than last week after my Chiefs got absolutely demolished by the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Feel a bit better this week. How are you, mate?
Yeah, you've fully moved on to 2025, I see. And yeah, I was there a good few weeks ago, Mags. Good on Kev for his Eagles, but we move on to 2025. Yeah, and I'm a bit under the weather, so you may be more chirpy. I'm certainly less chirpy tonight. I will try not to cough down the mic. It's that bad, but I'm excited for our show, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Excited for the show as well. It's that time of year where we're in the off season, time to look at your teams and time to get selling some of the dead weight or get selling some of those players that you think maybe this is as good a deal as I'm ever going to get in them. So we're going to talk you through some quarterbacks, some running backs, some wide receivers, and even some tight ends for the hell of it as well. Thank you very much for joining. Hey, loving the little uptick in our YouTube game here, Ali. If you are watching over on YouTube, love to see that like and subscribe. Hey, why not leave a little comment? Give us a heads up. Who's watching on YouTube? Say hey. Say what's up, and we'll get back to you just so we can see that that audience growing and growing, which is great to see. Ali, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to go into quarterback sales, and Ali, just looking at the show sheet here, you've put in a typo. I can see.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes right off the bat, quarterback 6. I mean, yeah, quarterback 6. It seems okay, but if he's my quarterback 1 on my team, I don't really feel like he gives me a chance to really compete at the minute in Dynasty, and he's not really done it for a couple of years. So I really think that name value, security alone is keeping him in the top 6. Sorry about that. So 2024, quarterback 11 in points per game, 18.3. It's all right. It's a fringe quarterback 1. But when you think of Mahomes, you think I've got an elite piece on my team. The last few years, he's one of the guys that, we talked about last week. You don't ever see many deals with Josh Allen involved in it. And the last couple of years, you've not really seen many trades involving Patrick Mahomes because people don't want to give up, the possible future GOAT of the NFL. So I look back at quarterback 2023, he was quarterback 13, so even lower. Almost identical points per game, 18.4. So again, he's not giving you that advantage, and he's not giving you that advantage since 2022 season where he was awesome. This was the old Patrick Mahomes that we knew. Quarterback 2, 25.8 points per game, and it was the same sort of story in 2021. He was top 5 quarterback at 21.8 points per game. So he was a difference maker. He's no longer a difference maker, in my opinion. That ties in with the big question of the offseason. Maybe you'll know a bit more than me, but is Travis Kelce going to retire or is he going to come back for another year? That's a big one because obviously he's been a huge weapon for Mahomes. The team as a whole, the last couple of years, the neutral pass rate continues to drop. It's become more of a run first and just play good defense all season. They seem to be in 1-score games, but sort of low 1-score games where they just have the possession at the end of the game and they win it on defense because their defense is awesome. His rushing yardage was the lowest since 2019, so just 307 yards. This guy doesn't really start rushing until the playoffs, which kind of makes sense for a real life point of view. Doesn't want to get injured. But it's also been his lowest passing touchdown output since 2019 as well. So just the 26 passing touchdowns this year. For context, the washed Aaron Rodgers and the rookie Bo Nix both passed for more passing touchdowns in 2024 than Patrick Mahomes. Yes, I think that the return of Rashee Rice is going to be huge for Mahomes because they had an awesome connection at the start of the year. And also, I was excited to see Xavier Worthy throughout the playoffs. Looked awesome. Second half of last season, he looked really good. So really excited to see those two on the field together. But yeah, I just think at quarterback 6, I don't really see a path for him for coming back, heading back into that tier with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, because he just doesn't have that rushing output. Doesn't have the passing output either. So I think this is a time where he's probably going to stay at this value, perhaps start to decline a little bit over the next few years. So I just think I want to take advantage and go to maybe for some difference makers. So I think you can trade him up for Drake May plus. Now, Drake May is one of my favorite quarterbacks right now in Dynasty. I really feel like he's going to kick on and have a really successful career starting from 2025. So I really like getting a plus on top of Drake May. Same for Jordan Love. I'm really high on Jordan Love. So getting a plus on top of that makes sense. And then I think interesting one would be for Caleb Williams as well, plus, because I think Caleb gives you some rushing on the floor. Really interested to see what it looks like with Ben Johnson in a head coach. But there's still a lot of people that don't like Caleb Williams. So be interested to see and take advantage of one of the people that is really low on Caleb Williams. I think you can get a nice plus for sending away Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, who would have predicted that we would have been in a case where we're selling Patrick Mahomes in Dynasty isn't, someone hitting the alarm bells going, what kind of hot take, like sort of clickbait is this? Because it's a perfectly reasonable thing to suggest. If I'm going to sell Patrick Mahomes, Ali, I'm probably going to use him to move up the way if I can, to go and get a Josh Allen, to go and get guys like that, just because I just feel so safe with Patrick Mahomes. And although Drake May did look really, really good, we've seen this happen before where people come in and have a good year and then they have a bad year and then they have another bad year and then they're out of the league. Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere. He's going to be in the league. He's going to be super safe. One of the worst things that can happen to you is if you're a team and you're looking pretty good, you're like, oh, look at me. I'm looking strong. I've got Anthony Richardson. I've got Deshaun Watson. I've got all this depth in quarterback. And then within 12 months, it disappears. So I think having Mahomes there, knowing that he's not going anywhere, he's not going to disappear. The guys below him, that you kind of mentioned, Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jordan Love. I mean, it wouldn't shock me one bit if Patrick Mahomes is in the NFL longer than those guys. And they're a lot younger than him, but he's just that good and that solid that's kind of where his value goes. And let's not forget, it's in there. We've seen him do it. It's not like he suddenly lost the arm strength. He's a bit of a chameleon at quarterback. He can play so many different ways. Maybe Andy Reid and the rest of the team thought, oh, actually, you know what? Chucking that lawn to Xavier Worthy wasn't that bad. It did kind of turn out pretty good for Worthy in the end, and it showed a little bit of something different. Maybe they go back to more of that Air Reid offense, and Mahomes can start to sling it a bit more, have a bit more fun out there, and we see him go back to that 21 points per game level where he was at before. So for me, Ali, you're going to be hard pressed to get me to sell Patrick Mahomes because I'm biased. But if I am, I'm not going down below to pick up any of these guys. I'm only going after Josh Allen and maybe Lamar. But that's my take on Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, Ali. So I gotta say that as well. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to think for Mahomes. My quarterback sell, I'm going to kind of strike while the iron's hot here, and I'm going to stay true to what we said a few years ago when this guy was coming in as a rookie. I'm still trying to sell Bryce Young while the iron is hot. He is currently ranked at quarterback 20, and you might be thinking, Mags, that's not great. Like, why would you want to sell at that quarterback 20? What kind of return are you going to get? Well, at least according to our friends at Keep Trade Cut, you're getting Jared Goff plus, Dak Prescott plus, Tua Tagovailoa plus. You could even throw your hat in the Anthony Richardson ring and see if you can get Anthony Richardson plus for Bryce Young. This guy, I've said it once, I said it again, good for an NFL team, perhaps, if he ties it all together. There is no fantasy upside at all with Bryce Young. Everyone was giving this kid lots of credit about what he was doing from week 14 to week 17, Ali, the last couple of weeks of the season. Wow, what a breakout party Bryce Young had. Quarterback 16 in points per game. Are we kidding? That's not a breakout. Like, it's just not a breakout. It's better than being dropped for Andy Dalton. So I suppose that's something. But if you're telling me I can take Bryce Young and go trade straight up for Dak Prescott, I'm taking that deal 1 million times out of 1 million. So strike now while iron's hot. Get yourself a quarterback that will bring you fantasy success like Dak Prescott. Or, like, let's talk Jared Goff. Those 3 weeks we talked about Jared Goff, he was quarterback 2 overall. So there's a real game changer that you could go out and get for Bryce Young. Strike while the iron's hot, because these Panthers, they stink, and they're going to continue to stink probably as well, Ali, right?
Yeah, I would very much like that. So I've been in the NFC South. I do like to see the Panthers absolutely suck. But yeah, I mean, what we talked about with Bryce Young, I don't actually mind him as a quarterback 3 on my team. If he's quarterback 2, that will probably need to firm up that position. But like you say, what is the upside of Bryce Young? How high could he realistically be ranked in dynasty rankings? Say in 12 months' time, if he has a good year, maybe he finishes as quarterback, I don't know, 14. If he takes that second year leap with Dave Canale as a head coach, he's going to be ranked quarterback 16, 17. So what's the upside when he's already ranked at quarterback 20? He's already been benched once, right, this year. So who's to say that they stink it up next year and then they fancy a quarterback in the 2026 rookie class? So I don't think it's ultra safe, but I did like what he showed towards the second half of last season. But yeah, it's got to be your quarterback 3 backing up 2 fairly decent quarterbacks. And imagine if you saw a trade in your league where it was Bryce Young for Goff and a 25-second or something, you'd be like, well, that's collusion, right? That shouldn't be going through. But that's quite funny for him to be ranked. I mean, it's just purely age, right? And maybe Goff, because the final game that we saw him, he stunk it up a bit. But yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. We spoke about Dak being a really big quarterback buy last week. If I can trade Bryce Young away for Dak, it's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm right there with you for sure. So that's our quarterback sells, Ali. Let's roll down the road here to these running backs. And your first one, Ali, music to my ears, because you know me, a broken clock is right twice a day. And for me, this might be my example player of this. So who you selling at running back?
Yeah, I thought you either might like this one, Mags, or you might not like it. And I've taken your player that you want to sell. But Kyren Williams, he's still running back 9 in dynasty rankings on keep trade cut anyway. So I can't be having him that high. I think we've already spoke last week, if not the week before, about there's 6, possibly 7 maximum running backs that you feel really good about in dynasty. The rest of them, very, very happy and actively trying to sell them. So Kyren Williams finds himself really at the top of that list where it starts with the uncertainty. So he's a big time sell. Obviously, when you look at his fantasy finishes the last 2 years, you'd maybe question that. RB7, both in 24 and 23. That's fantastic. 15 touchdowns in 2023, 16 touchdowns in 2024. He was a revelation because everyone was talking about how slow Kyren was in the combine. A lot of people were willing to jump off Kyren after his first season and hardly touching the ball. But he came back, and in 2023 just was a revelation, averaging over 5 yards per carry for the Rams. Helped win a lot of people their fantasy championships, as he did this year. Although, when you look at the metrics, he certainly was nowhere near as efficient in 2024. He was back down to a sort of an average, maybe a little bit below average, 4 yards per carry in 2024. And I just get a bit itchy feet with Kyren Williams. I think this guy doesn't catch the ball much. He was 30th in running back receptions in 2024 with just 34 receptions. It's not great, but when you've got yourself a top 10 running back, if you bought into him last year, you obviously paid a high price. He was 40th in running back receiving yardage. He really has relied on them touchdowns, to be an RB1. And you've got lucky the last couple of years because he's scored touchdown in nearly every game. There's very few that he hasn't scored a touchdown. And I just think looking at 2025, I think this Rams offense could look fairly different. We know Cooper Kupp is going to be gone. There's talks about Matthew Stafford. Could he be on his way out to the Giants or a team that is really needing a quarterback? There's talks of that. And then your argument last year was that Blake Corum was drafted. Was it round 2, round 3? And we know that he's a very, very capable running back, very productive in college. And then Kyren's entering the final year of the deal. So I would much rather get out too early while he's still valued as a top 10 running back. Trade him away now, because the uncertainty, if he has an average season, if say Blake Corum comes in and it's more of a 50-50, 60-40, I mean, what's the free agent market going to look like for Kyren in 2026? His value could take a massive, massive hit. So looking at his value, Keep Trade Cuts says that you can trade Kyren for a mid-25 first right now. That's something I would definitely be interested in. The other move, obviously, I don't want to. Obviously, I can tier up to one of the running backs that I feel good about, but they're the same running backs that everybody feels good about. So it's difficult. You have to pay a high price, and I never like to pay up for a running back in the offseason. So if I was going to trade Kyren away, it would be actually to tier down. If I'm a contender, to maybe a Derrick Henry plus, take a chance on Christian McCaffrey plus, or get plenty on top of like an Alvin Kamara plus. They're the sort of moves that I would make, but I definitely prefer to move him for a mid first if I can do it.
I mean, no arguments for me, Ali. I've been saying it for so many years. For me, I still don't really see it, to be honest. When I'm watching him, I don't see it. I don't fully get it. He gets a ton of carries. He gets a lot of red zone work, where he obviously is doing a pretty good job there. He's got an issue with fumbling, in my opinion, as well. I don't fully see it. I never have. I'm going to admit I've been wrong about him for the last 2 years, because he's been crushing it, he's been killing it. But I just think there's got to be better options out there than Kyren. And I didn't understand when Blake Corum didn't get it last year. He's still there on the team, as we know. There's a chance it might be this year. We never know with Sean McVay what he's going to do. So no arguments for me about Kyren Williams. Yeah, that would be good value. To get Derrick Henry plus, that's a pretty nice one for Kyren Williams, I think, as well. Especially he's in the last year of his contract. That could be the last year we see anything coming out of Kyren Williams. And Ali, you mentioned something there. You'd rather be too early than too late. That's the basis behind mine. I'm going to go Josh Jacobs here as my running back sell. Not because I think Josh Jacobs is a bad player. Not because I don't think that, running back 12 is an absolutely ridiculous place to be putting Josh Jacobs in terms of ranking. But what I am thinking is this guy's 7th season coming up in the NFL. We've seen running backs, unless they're really elite special players, they don't usually last that long and come out the other side smelling like roses. So I think this could be, if not the year Josh Jacobs falls off, but maybe the last year that you're going to get of true production from Josh Jacobs. He's finishing really strongly still. Like, he's always up there, that running back 1 range, but we've seen wheels just fall off these running backs. I mean, look at Austin Eckler, right? Finished from running back 1, and then just boom. Everything just fell off a cliff. Halfway through the season, even, I believe it was with Eckler. Like, he was killing it, crushing it, and then all of a sudden he got old overnight. And we see this happen all the time. And Josh Jacobs right on that cusp going into the 7th season, where I want to get out now before the wheels do come off. And Ali, again, looking at Keep Trade Cut, you can go get Travion Henderson straight up for Josh Jacobs. Give me that all day. I'm getting a running back who I actually think is just as talented as Josh Jacobs, a lot more explosive than Josh Jacobs, for cheaper than Josh Jacobs, and I get him when he's I don't know how many years younger, 5 years younger, 6 years younger. That's the kind of deal I would make all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. No argument. He's in that same bucket, really, RB9 to RB12.
Yeah.
That is where the top of the uncertainty absolutely begins, and, they still hold a pretty chunky value. So, yeah, if you can get any future first for Josh Jacobs. I think you'll be hard pressed to find someone right now, but perhaps the guy towards who won the championship last year. In your rookie drafts, if if he's thinking, or you approach him and say, look, I've got Josh Jacobs, who is always an RB1. You want to retain, go back to back with your championships. Have my Josh Jacobs and give yourselves that certainty rather than pick a rookie and go after their late first. I think definitely the route to go with these older running backs. And yeah, I totally wouldn't be surprised if we saw a big fall off from Jacobs. And we've just seen, people move their dynasty rankings about so quickly now. So if you was to see any sort of drop off from Jacobs, or if the Packers went out and drafted one of these running backs, you'll see him drop to the mid-20s in terms of value. So yeah, now is probably the highest value he's ever going to hold right now. So yeah, he's definitely a sell.
I didn't even mention, Ali, we'd not got to see Marshawn Lloyd at all, who was, a lot of people's running back one out of last year's class coming out. He's a good player as well. And if he stays fit and healthy, he should be able to rescue some snaps away from Josh Jacobs as well. Do you remember from last year, were you a fan of Marshawn Lloyd and what he was able to do?
Yeah, he was my running back 3, I believe, post-draft. I really, really did like Marshawn Lloyd. Just such a pity that he couldn't get himself healthy. Just not a great situation at all. But I mean, you look at him, Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, my top 3 running backs didn't hardly sniff the field, and not great, but certainly got the talent. So I'd love to see him back because he's certainly got some juice.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. Definitely one to monitor. And now on to wide receiver. And Ali, if there was some sad violin music, I'd start playing it because I can't believe what you're about to say.
Yeah, that's not me crying. That's just me sniffing because of the cold. But I feel like I'm betraying my boy right now because, I'm going to say it. Lad McConkey at wide receiver 10 is a sell for me in Dynasty. I'm just absolutely pained. My heart is hurting about talking about this guy, but I'm in such a negative light anyway. But I just think for me, he sort of fits in wide receiver 15 to 18 range. And that might sound a little bit low, but I just think that's ultimately where he's going to find himself in the next few seasons. So at wide receiver 10, we had the same argument with Drake London last year. I don't see Lad McConkey ever pushing up to wide receiver 6 in Dynasty, especially with the rookies coming in. So wide receiver 10, this is where I'm definitely looking to take advantage. But yeah, I mean, it started off, what a season for Lad McConkey. Massive rise from, you talk about all the rookies out of last year that were being spoken about. And Lad McConkey sort of went under the radar. He wasn't ultra productive at Georgia. He never cracked that 800 yards in a season. Was never really the focal point of that attack. Obviously, Brock Bowers, the incredible Brock Bowers, outproduced him every single season and obviously went on to dominate the NFL as well. But just what I saw and, what I fell in love with last sort of rookie season was I saw absolute traces of a really good wide receiver that works in the modern NFL. So obviously the twitchiness, I love that. He just gets open for fun. He's a guy that is just consistent. He moves the chains, but never really dominates. Obviously, the question marks were, could he stay healthy? He had that chronic back problem that saw him miss games in college. And then could he be an alpha? Because that was what he was tasked with at the Chargers. And actually, he proved that he could do it in 2024, at least, with that great chemistry with Justin Herbert, who himself had a bounce back season, especially towards the second half of last season. I just looked at the stats because I thought, I know how good a season it was, but how good was it in terms of the history of the NFL? It's actually the 13th most receiving yards for a rookie in NFL history, which was astonishing. And then he dominated that final game. Was it in the playoffs that they lost? And I looked, it was actually a better season than these wide receivers. So he had a better rookie season than Garrett Wilson, Michael Thomas, AJ Green, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. And I just think he's sort of going under the radar a little bit when you can compare him to them. But yeah, just looking at wide receiver 10, ultimately, if he was my wide receiver 1, I think I'd be quite nervous about, being able to
Mm-hmm.
contend in a dynasty league. I do feel like the Chargers could easily add a wide receiver via the free agency or via the draft. And then you look at their offense anyway, they really want to run the ball. And I think they're going to be big players in Ashton Janty in the draft. I think that would be a perfect landing spot for him. So yeah, wide receiver 10, I'm selling. He's actually above Marvin Harrison Jr. on Keep Trade Cut, which I thought was interesting. And I can certainly see the argument both ways for that one. You can get a plus on top of Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think with his sort of breakout season, I think that's interesting. I think he could continue to ascend. And AJ Brown is now ranked 4 wide receivers below Lad McConkey on Keep Trade Cut. I would do that straight up, to be honest. I've got AJ Brown still ranked ahead of Lad McConkey, so that would be a move that I'd definitely make.
Yeah, AJ Brown would need to be holding that book in his hand on the field for me not to take him above Lad McConkey. Like that is, that's a bit crazy. Ali, let me read you out some names, shall I? How about Josh Palmer, Darius Davis, Simi Fecchio, Jalen Rager, DJ Chark, Kev's favorite. Yep. And of course, the man with bricks for hands, Quentin Johnson. That was the competition that Lad McConkey had in that wide receiver room with, in my eyes, I'm going to say this to the cows come home, an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert. I don't care what anybody says. That guy's an elite quarterback. Yep. They're going to have to bring in someone working in his favor, not a great wide receiver class for the Chargers to kind of pluck from. Mm-hmm. However, there's a guy by the name of Colson Loveland lurking out there who was an absolute favorite of Harbaugh's when he was at Michigan. Mm-hmm. That's a match made in heaven right there, and he will take away targets from Lad McConkey. I would expect if they do bring in another pass-catching weapon, you would expect some slight regression from Lad McConkey, not maybe too much, but enough to say that that's a pretty good value sell, especially for some of those names that you mentioned, Ellie, at wide receiver 10. I've got a weird one for you because whenever you see Tyreek Hill ranked as wide receiver 38, you might think, well, that's a buy, obviously. But this is one where I believe, Ali, this is wide receiver 38 in name alone, right? If that makes any sense. Because if you kind of look at what's going on with Tyreek Hill, the players that are surrounding him and all around him, you're not giving up Tyreek Hill plus to get Jerry Jeudy, right? That's not happening. I don't care what the rankings say. We know Keep Trade Cut, which we're using for this video, is volatile. Man, I think there's still huge name value there for Tyreek Hill, but there's whispers of him wanting a trade. He's kicking up a fuss. We've seen huge downtick in his numbers. Even, the Kansas City Chiefs did notice that whenever they traded him away. Obviously, these players are monitored all the time. They noticed a regression in his speed, which I think became a little bit clear towards the back end of last year. He wasn't quite burning away from people like he normally would. This wrist injury seems to be a big issue. His antics off the field continue to be a big issue. He will be, I think, 31 years old by the time next season starts. Not a hell of a lot of elite 31-year-old receivers out there. Tyreek Hill is a special player, but in the same vein as Josh Jacobs, might be time now to get out before this wide receiver 38 isn't just, on paper, but it's legit and it's for real. So I'm trying to get out now while there is some name value still with Tyreek Hill and go ahead and boost way beyond that wide receiver 38 and have him as a great throw-in piece. Hey, you could package Tyreek Hill and Lad McConkey together, Ali, and you could get one hell of a receiver in return.
Oof. Yeah, that sounds a great idea, to be honest. I completely agree. Wide receiver 38, I think come the start of the season, he'll be much higher than that with the certainty coming back. Yeah, I mean, why is he with 38? It doesn't seem real. It's like he might as well just retire at this stage.
He said he was
think
going to. Remember that? He said he was going to retire and become a porn star at this stage.
I know. I've got a crazy trade. This will never happen, but it'd be pretty funny for the last season. It would be trade Tyreek Hill for Travis Kelce. Let's give Tyreek Hill another ring on the Chiefs. Let's see Mahomes back to being a quarterback one. And let's Travis Kelce can retire in Florida in nice Miami with Taylor Swift. Yeah. That would be quite fun on paper.
That's quite nice.
Yeah. But I certainly agree that, like you say, you're not trading Tyreek Hill for Jerry Jeudy or any of the wide receivers around that spot. No, not at all. So yeah, I think you can certainly get so much more for Tyreek. But yeah, it's a funny situation because he was kicking off saying, I want to get out there. Now he was on Radio Row at the Super Bowl saying, no, I apologize. I didn't say that. I don't want to get a trade away. But yeah, I have a feeling something's going to happen in the off season because it was just such a terrible situation in Miami in 2024.
Yeah, I think you're right. Something's brewing with Tyreek Hill. He seems to be the kind of guy he could go full Antonio Brown, I think, right? He could leave halfway through a game. Like, he's got that kind of streak in him where you're not really sure what he's going to do. He's part of the pun alley. He's a bit of a wild card, but we love wild cards over on this show. Ali, we're going to talk about some tight ends, which is just the absolute wild west of fantasy football. But you can still find some value in there. And you've got one plucked right from our former Podfather's learning tree, right?
Oh, yes. We're talking about Sam LaPorta. And I mean, to be honest, I would have sold anybody. Like, when I opened Keep Trade Cut that I saw at tight end 3, they would have been the player that I chose to sell, just because of the tiers. There's such a massive tier from tier 1 and from tight end 1 and 2 down to tight end 3. It's just ridiculous how big that tier drop is right now. I think that Sam LaPorta is tight end 3 in Dynasty by default, by age alone, and just because of that rookie year that he had in 2023, where he was great. He caught all them touchdowns. But then, by the way, that was absolutely blown out of the water by Brock Bowers in 2024. I think it's put it in context that it wasn't that amazing, and it was a down year for tight ends. So I've got some stats that show it. You know, from year 1 to year 2, we actually had a drop off in production from tight end 1 down to tight end 8. 86 receptions in 2023 down to 60. So that was a big drop. 120 targets down to 83. His target share was down from 21.1% to 17%. His routes and route participation was down from 500 routes in 23 to 404. 82.6% of the routes he was running down to 73.6, so almost 10% drop, and 100 less routes that he ran. Efficiency actually slightly went up from 1.78 yards per route run to 1.8 in 2024, but we're talking that's just static. The biggest one was, it's actually worth noting that the figure of 1.78 yards per route run in 2023 was the 6th in the NFL at time position. The 1.8, which was basically the same stat in 2024, was actually only 17th. So all around, the tight end position was dramatically improved in 2024. And yeah, so looking at the tiers, there's just such a massive tier break. I actually looked down the list at the tier that I would have Sam LaPorta in, or almost up to. So it'd be tight end 3 down to about tight end 12 or 13. There's just one massive group. If you got like David Njoku, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, all of these guys down to tight end 13, which is Kyle Pitts now. What a massive fall that is.
More on that later.
More on that in a little while. But Sam LaPorta, the trade for me would just be to tear down to any of the next tight ends. If I can get a nice plus on top of that, be happy to do that. Or the other thing will be to find a way to get up to Trey McBride, just because I think those two top tight ends give you such a massive positional advantage over the rest of the field. Hopefully there's at least a couple of rookies that are going to come in and perhaps join them, or not be far away. But I think that if I could trade up to get to Trey McBride, not have to give up a massive haul, I think that's the move to make. I don't think you can go up to Brock Bowers right now. I do think that he is almost untouchable in Dynasty.
Yeah, Brock Bowers, you're going to need an elite wide receiver. He's the new Travis Kelce in that range. He's got to be considered as like a separate position for sure. I agree with Sam LaPorta. I mean, Jameson Williams says hello. That guy crushed Sam LaPorta's value. When he's on the field, he is obviously more favored than Sam LaPorta. I mean, the thing is, the Lions are so stacked with talent that you got to think, well, we're going to either hand the ball to David Montgomery, hand the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, we're going to throw it to Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're going to throw it to Jahmyr Gibbs, or we're going to throw it to Jameson Williams. So on every individual play, Sam LaPorta's option 6, like that's just not great for his outcome there. And at tight end 3, Ali, I think you're right. It's good to cash in now. You really should have done it last year. Whenever we were saying last year when he was tight end number 1 overall, that was the chance to do it. But you still got an opportunity now to get in there as well. And you mentioned earlier, Ali, Kyle Pitts. He's my sell. I think I'm done. I think I'm done with Kyle Pitts. This is maybe the last year you're going to get any name value from him. He is tight end 13, but every single roster I've got Kyle Pitts on, just a massive headache. I'm just going to trade for Evan Ingram and just be that and get plus, and that'll be fine by me. And that's no more headache. I can put a guy like Ingram in, Tucker Kraft, guys like this. I can just put them in and not worry about what's going to happen with Kyle Pitts. There's always that fear that he's going to drop an absolute goose egg on you and lose you a matchup. I'm out on Kyle Pitts. I'm getting rid, even at tight end 13 now. Again, sort of that little Tyreek Hill thing we spoke about, Ali. There are some people out there. I'm seeing tweets coming out already. God damn it. People saying Kyle Pitts rebound. Here we go. Like, really? We're going to rewind that tape again? Like, come on. Yeah. I'm thinking, especially with Michael Penix, who, I mean, we spoke about that great receiving core that Penix had at Washington with Odunze and your boy Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk as well. Couldn't tell you the tight end. I watched almost all their games. I can't remember who it was because they were targeted so infrequently. We got Jordan Merritt screaming at the stream to say exactly who the tight end is. Sorry, Jordan. I know I missed him. But yeah, I think I'm out on Kyle Pitts, and I'm getting out while there's any value at all left to grab.
Yeah. I had to laugh at the PFF tweet that's been doing the rounds today.
That was
and perhaps yesterday was it was the bounce back for Kyle Pitts. Still only 24, I think, years old. But yeah, I think similarly to Tyreek Hill, he's tight end 13, maybe on Keep Trade Cut. But in terms of actual value, I bet you could trade him for David Njoku straight up, or Tucker Kraft. Someone like that. And yeah, they're the moves that I'd make as well. I think I've had enough of. Luckily I don't own much of Kyle Pitts in Dynasty, but where I do, I just have to sob just thinking at where he was, how much value that he had at one point, and now down as not even a tight end 1 is such a massive drop in value that I think you really have to cash in now. But there's always going to be believers, Mags. There's always, you can fire up 2026 off season. There's going to be the return of Kyle Pitts, probably on a different team. It'll be, there's a boost to his value now. He's on the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's just going to be, the same old story.
Who was that tight end? He was at Buffalo. They drafted him really early. And it was the same song and dance with him. I can't remember who it was. Someone in the comments will probably remind me and let me know. But he was at Buffalo certainly for a huge chunk of his career. And they drafted him really, really early, and it was meant to be the next big thing. And he just didn't do a thing for fantasy football. Can't quite remember his name. I'm sure someone will let us know, Ali. But that wraps up our sells we're into our 2-minute warning, which is, Ali, I'm loving this, by the way. 2-minute
Me too.
warning, just some quick fire trades that you can fire over on X. Make sure that you look out for that comment. Go follow us over there at the Fantasy Wildcard page on X, or hey, drop a comment on YouTube as well. I'm sure we can see it there too if you want to get a question in. Ali, let's pitch these to you. Oh, look at this. This come in from a guy called Hot Seat Mags, Betty Chums. I'm not sure. 12 team Superflex PPR, Xavier Worthy or Rashi Rice, Ali.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, I love the suggestion. Leave a comment with any trades that you've got, and we'll pick them up on the next show. Likewise, hit either of us up, or the Dynasty Show, any fantasy wildcard. Just hit us up with a trade. We'll retweet it and then we'll talk about it on the show. But yeah, I thought this was a really interesting one that I saw, and just because of the late rise of Xavier Worthy. Obviously, the start of the season, he was from the combine smashing the records, the 40 time. Very sort of slow to start the season, but still carried the touchdown threat, and finished the season really strongly. Rashi Rice was the opposite. Coming off the major injury. But give me Rashi Rice. I still think that as long as he is 90% of the same healthy Rashi Rice that we saw in 2024 at the start of the season, that chemistry with Mahomes was undeniable. They looked awesome. The slants, he was just the go-to guy. So many targets. And that's the sort of receiver that I like, especially in PPR leagues. Rashi Rice is going to feast. So as long as he comes back healthy, I would still pick him over Worthy, who I still think that he's not a complete wide receiver. I think he's going to have spikes. He's going to have down games, whereas Rashi Rice is a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Rashi Rice is the Travis Kelce replacement that people aren't really noticing. Like that's what Rashi Rice was doing. There's a reason why Kelce only became semi-startable in fantasy. It was once Rashi Rice went down those short yarders, those slants, looking for that yards after the catch from Rashi Rice. I don't know if it's a bold prediction or not, Ali. He's currently ranked wide receiver 17. Keep trade cut. He stays healthy next year. Top 10 wide receiver easily, in my opinion. Could even creep into the top 8. So give me Rashi Rice in that trade. All right, on to the next one. See him again, but this time with a tight end premium, Ali. This is a slightly bigger trade. Here we go. Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton, and 210, or Roma Dunze, 25, a 2027 first, a 2027 second, and a 2027 third. That's a pretty big trade, Ali. What do you think?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think the guy that submitted it, I think he took over an orphan. I think he had plenty of quarterbacks on the roster. So I think he was trading for the Roma Dunze side. I think it's a really interesting one because 9 times out of 10, I'll look at the side that's got the quarterback in Superflex leagues and immediately gravitate to that position. I think it's interesting because obviously you've got the Broncos stack. Cortland Sutton was a really nice target for Bo Nix in year one, who, I've been on the record to say that I was just amazed by how good Bo Nix was in 2024. Definitely proved me wrong. So it's an interesting one, especially because on the other side, you've got 27 first, you've got 27 second, and we advocated that last week. You said, don't trade for 26 first, trade for 27 first, which is exactly what we've got here. You've got Roma Dunze again, who's, one of my biggest buys in Dynasty. So it's a difficult one because I'd have Roma Dunze ahead of Cortland Sutton quite comfortably. You're obviously getting better picks. So you're then looking at the 27 first, 27 second, and third for Bo Nix, plus the better second round pick. Give me the Roma Dunze side. It is difficult to weigh up just, this or that because one's got quarterback, one hasn't. But I think value-wise, I do lean the Roma Dunze side. I'm excited to see how Ben Johnson can use Roma Dunze in Chicago. So I'm expecting that year to leap. So give me that side.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the context of knowing that this is an orphan team, this is a rebuild team. There is a bit of help at quarterback there. Bo Nix is a really nice player. He's not a cornerstone player that you want to build your team around. Whereas those 2027 firsts, they've got 1 in 3, 1 in 4 chance of giving you that cornerstone player that you can build around. There's a hell of a lot of talent at quarterback, even outside of Arch Manning, who looks like he's going to come out in 2027. There's a hell of a lot
Mm.
coming. So that those 2027 picks are a lot of fun. Plus, I think, yeah, you're right. Roma Dunze is an excellent buy right now. So I'll take the same side as you again there, Ali. We're 2 for 2 so far. Next one, super flex. Interesting. Caleb Williams or Michael Penix and the 104. Ali, what do you think about that?
Yeah, this is very interesting. Obviously, two rookies, but we saw little of Michael Penix. I think as a whole, I do have Caleb Williams ranked ahead of Michael Penix. It probably think I've got him at least one tier ahead, but I do have to respect that Michael Penix is coming into a great situation. We've both said that we really like the combination of him and Drake London. I've even said he could be a top 5 wide receiver for me in 2025. So if I'm getting the 104, which I've got at the minute is one of the quarterbacks, but it could be a Luther Burden. It could be one of these high-end running backs. If they get taken, early on in the draft. And we saw that was it Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft today? He had 3 running backs go in the first round, actually on a run. And Amarian Hampton was one of them. If I can get Penix plus Amarian Hampton on a team that's drafted him in round 1, yeah, give me that side all day long. I do like Caleb, and I think his value might rise a little bit, but I'm definitely on the Penix and the pick side.
Oh, this is the first time I'm going to disagree, Ali. I'll take Caleb Williams. I just think Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, Roma Dunze, all that talent that is there, all that potential that is there. This could be really big for Caleb Williams. Could end up being a mistake long term, but I don't like jumping out on prospects I do like after just 1 year. So I'm still going to give Caleb the benefit of the doubt. It's not easy being a rookie quarterback, even though some of these more experienced guys do make it look easy. We have seen people who have come out of college as early as Caleb struggle a little bit at the start and then find their form a little bit later. So give me Caleb Williams, but it is very, very close. We got one more for us, Ali. This is a 1 QB league, so not one that we play too often. No quarterbacks on the board here, at least, but there's a lot going on. Side 1 is getting Amon-Ra St. Brown, 2027, first and a third and a fourth and a fifth. And what, like what else do you get? Like a packet of biscuits. Or on the other side, you get Stevon, get the tables, Echan, Drake London, that absolute scrub, and no, actually, and then a 2027 second round pick as well. This has got a hell of a lot of good players in it, Ali. What do you do here?
Yeah, I think now I know the bloke that traded for the Amon-Ra St. Brown side, and just seeing the side that it was traded to, it's got a lot of firepower, just not a lot of running back. Really like the wide receiver. I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown is someone that people aren't talking about enough. Well, everybody just knows he's a stud, but I think it's like they don't need to talk about him anymore. And I think that he doesn't quite get enough credit for what he does. He's an elite player. I'd be very happy to have him as my wide receiver 1 on my team. He is wide receiver 1 on plenty of my teams. So in a vacuum, I've got him ranked comfortably ahead of Drake London. I do think he's in for a really good season in 2025. You know, we really value Devon Achane, and you know he's one of the running backs where you do actually feel good about in Dynasty. So I have to say, value-wise, this is extremely close for me. You know, trading for that 27 first makes sense. Third round pick, fine. Fourth and fifth don't mean anything to me. I'd like to have packaged the third, fourth, and fifth to make it a second, that would make more sense to me. But I could lean either way on this trade, just because I do feel that Amon-Ra St. Brown isn't getting the credit he deserves. He's a top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty, and I think he's the one elite piece in this. Plus, you're getting a first on top. So I do lean the Amon-Ra St. Brown side, but I could easily justify talking myself into the other side as well, because we've been big Devon Achan, get the tables Achan fans on here, because just the ceiling that he shows.
Yeah, you're right. This is super close. I'm with you though. I take the St. Brown side here as well, just because when it comes down to this, I'm like, who am I happiest putting in my lineup out of all these guys? It's St. Brown. I'll take him. He's going to be the guy that will win me games week in and week out. So I'll take that side. Plus, I get that first round pick leader down the line as well. Yeah, give me the St. Brown side. But overall, a pretty good trade, pretty fair for both sides. And Ali, that wraps up another great episode of the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. Thanks everybody so much for listening and tuning in. If you're not already, make sure you're following us on all the socials over on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it. And of course, our new look YouTube channel as well. Ali, how was that show for you? I had a blast.
Yeah, it was great. I think there's still time to find some really good value in Dynasty, whether it's buying or selling players. I don't think you should just stand alone and wait for the rookie drafts. I think you should take advantage of, especially on Keep Trade Cut now, because the rookies are involved in the rankings as well. So it's quite interesting to see where they are. So you could probably get some value in terms of trading for rookies, or trading away some of these more volatile pieces. So really enjoyed the show. Next week, I believe we are jumping into rookie season with a couple of special guests from the Devy Show. So I can't wait for that.
Yes, I cannot wait for that either. Ali, that brings us to the end. But just remember, everybody listening, when you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game. See you soon.